Melissa Lavinson is the Senior President of Government and External Affairs for Pepco Holdings. And prior to joining Pepco, she worked at PG&E, where she served as the Vice President of Federal Affairs and Chief Sustainability Officer. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
So, I'm excited to have this conversation about climate change because we know that it was almost a bad word for a while, even though before it was, we were celebrating some of the achievements that we were making. But from a just from a basic community standpoint, what are some of the signs of climate change that some of our local viewers may be observing?
Well, thanks for that question. And you're right, it is an incredibly important issue, and it is something that we're all observing. We're living it today. Climate change isn't something that's in the future; it's happening now. And I think the way that we're seeing it, particularly in this area, is we're seeing more days over 90 degrees in the summertime and more days in a row over 90 degrees. We're seeing many more severe storms in terms of torrential rains as well as high winds. And we're also seeing in parts of our area, while we have the flooding and heavy rains on one side, in some areas we're seeing actually extended periods of drought. And so that cycle of having heavy rains and no rain, it really creates that unfortunate opportunity for flooding, and that's a really big challenge to lots of our communities.
We know with storms and rains and tornadoes and all that, we know the kind of damage that those situations can create. But environmentally speaking, if you can answer this question, I mean, we see, I guess, photos about, the fish in the sea and what have you. I mean, talk about impact. What is the impact on, let's say, a family that lives on Martin Luther King Avenue?
No, that's really important, because while I think we talk a lot about the impacts of global climate change, really understanding what it means in our daily lives is super important, because it does impact all of us. So just as we're talking about some of the impacts we have here locally, so if you think about a world in which we're going to have higher temperatures, which means we might have more days of intense heat waves over time, higher humidity. For a family, that could mean higher energy costs. If it's a family or someone that lives in an area that's prone to flooding and we have more torrential rains, that means potentially more flooding at your home. It means it makes it more challenging for people to get to work, either when there's higher heat, when there's torrential rains. And you really think about it going forward, that has the global impact can have an impact on food supplies going forward. And so we could see over time higher costs for food, as well as impacts on air quality. When there are more days where the temperatures get above 90 degrees and high humidity, it does impact our air quality, and that has a public health impact. So while people talk about global climate change, and you might see pictures of forest fires in California or melting ice caps in Greenland, we're seeing it every day in our daily lives here, and it does have an impact on our everyday lives.
And when we look at what we as consumers or just humans do to contribute to this climate change, I guess that's where the area of subject of greenhouse gases comes up. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. And so what causes climate change is something called greenhouse gases, and it contributes to what's known as the greenhouse effect. And so the greenhouse effect at its core, it's essentially the way in which heat's trapped close to the Earth's atmosphere by these gases. And these gases include things like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. And we generate these gases by burning fossil fuels, which are things like coal and natural gas to generate electricity, or petroleum in our cars in terms of gasoline. And we also generate greenhouse gases from agricultural processes, fertilizer use, and other activities. And so while a lot of these are naturally occurring and through the natural cycle of things, human activity over the past 100 and 150 years has really accelerated the release of these gases into the atmosphere, and basically creating almost like a blanket across around the Earth, which traps in heat and heats the Earth's surface and eventually the oceans, and that's what really is causing what we know as climate change from the greenhouse effect.
And like individuals, I think Pepco is probably maybe leading, like because if your company is to provide heat and electricity to consumers, and one way you did it contributed, I guess, in the
Right.
past to these greenhouse gases, and now your Pepco is looking at ways of contributing to a cleaner environment. And so talk about some of those things that you all have had to do over the last, I know you've been at it for a while, but over the last few years to change the way you're doing business.
Sure, absolutely, and absolutely right. We at Pepco Exelon really believe that climate is climate change is real, and we really have to do our part to help combat the climate crisis. And so some of the things that we've done as a company, so as Exelon made a commitment a long time ago to transition away from fossil fuel in terms of its generation fleet and go to a clean, carbon-free generation fleet, and has actually emits the lowest amount of greenhouse gases of any major power producer in the country. For Pepco and Pepco Holdings, we actually don't own any power plants. We're a company that provides electricity to our customers in this region, and we do it in accordance with our states and jurisdictions. And so, if you think about Washington D.C., the District of Columbia. The district has been really leading on climate change in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and building resilience. They have some of the most forward-leaning goals of any jurisdiction in the country. Has a goal of being carbon neutral by 2050, and so if you think about that over the next 25 years, and being resilient. And so, from our perspective at Pepco, we really know that we have a role to play in that. We have an obligation to help our communities and customers reduce their greenhouse gas footprint, and we have an obligation to reduce our own. So we've taken a hard look at what we can do in terms of reducing the greenhouse gas footprint of our own operations, so our buildings and our own electricity use, as well as our fleet, what we can do to help our customers and enable them to reduce their carbon footprint in terms of saving energy, using cleaner energy, going solar, and then what we can do to help the broader community both mitigate climate change, but also adapt to a changing climate, including strategic tree planting, trying to build resilience in our communities, and really helping the district to transition to an electrified transportation system. So lots of activities, lots of action, and we know that we have a role to play and are committed to playing that role and committed to really taking steps to combat climate change.
I think the message is getting out there, and I think that from what I can see, like you said, lots of trees have been planted all across the city for many years, and so that's one thing that's great about DC. We are a city of trees, and then I think it appears as though we're finding more bike lanes. People don't like the bike lanes, but we're seeing more bicycles and other types of vehicles now besides cars, because we're a small city, so people are adopting other means of transportation. And you talked about solar, and that's going up
Absolutely.
on rooftops all across the district.
Absolutely.
So with all of that, one would think that, okay, if we can depend on the sun to provide electricity, and Pepco supports us in that, does that decrease our bill? Will we end up paying less, but having really enough electricity to manage our households? There's some questions I'm sure people still have about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And solar is a fantastic technology, and the district has in place a great program to provide solar energy to all customers. So there's options for both to put solar on the rooftops and to generate enough for your own household. And folks have the opportunity to sign up for what's called community solar, including through a program called Solar for All, which actually provides can provide free solar electricity to income eligible customers across the district. So the district's really done a fantastic job of advancing that. And the role that we play in that is helping to interconnect solar to the broader distribution system, and making sure that we're investing in our system so that it's resilient and so that it can accommodate all these new decentralized generation sources coming onto our system. I think, taking a step back, an important thing to note is, the system as it exists today was built to accommodate electricity kind of coming from big power plants through lines and then to people's homes. And today, with new technologies like solar, like storage, et cetera, we're able to really to break that old paradigm and to really generate electricity locally. But what that means is that we need to make the investments in the power grid to make it smarter, stronger, and cleaner so that we can accommodate all this new solar coming on. And so that's what the role we see as Pepco playing, is to really allow folks to understand where the best place is to site solar, to make the investments to accommodate solar, and to really streamline those processes so that people can get their solar interconnected to the system as quickly as possible to help customers take advantage of it and drive down their energy bills.
One thing that, and we're kind of coming to an end, but I wanted to say, Melissa, when you talk about this, I'm using the word conversion, but as we move into these different areas, I hear jobs. I hear opportunities. I hear because eventually everything's gonna change eventually, and so that means that there's opportunities for people to learn more about solar, or about climate change and how to be a part of this movement. And so what would you tell people to do if they want to know more about what Pepco's doing, and as that relates to some of your goals moving forward?
Sure. So actually, we're going to be coming out later next week, and people can go to our website probably Thursday, Friday of next week, because what we've done is really to take a step back and to look at what actions that we're taking today and what actions we can commit to taking tomorrow to help enable this transition to a low or zero carbon future for the District of Columbia. And so we're really excited about that. And so it's going to lay out a series of actions that people can understand what we're doing as a company. And hopefully then other companies can take a look at that as a model and say, oh, I can do the same thing, whether it be increasing the efficiency of our buildings, transitioning the energy sources that we're using to power our buildings, or transforming our fleet to an electric fleet. We're going to be highlighting actions that our customers can take through programs and energy solutions that allow them to use energy more efficiently, or go solar, or actually convert their own vehicle to an electric vehicle, and what they can do to help manage the costs around that. And kind of showing what we can do as a broader community, how we can all work together to build resilience, as well as how we can work together to educate one another about actions we can take to, again, save energy and save money at the process. One thing that we did in conjunction with the District of Columbia and this summer, and a host of other coalition partners, was to actually launch something called Reduce Energy Use DC. It was an educational campaign, as well as a campaign that showed folks how to take action, how you in your own life can take action to both combat climate change, but save energy and save money at the same time. And there's really easy things folks can do. And so what we really wanted to do is put all that together in terms of showing what we're doing today, what we hope to do tomorrow, and how others can join in the fight. And so stay tuned for that. We will be launching that later next week. But we're excited, and we look forward to the collaboration, the partnership with folks going forward.
Well, so do I, and we want to definitely follow it, because the more, like you said, join the fight together to save our environment, to save our climate, to clean it up, and to make the future a better place for our children. So thank you, Melissa, for being with us and for sharing what Pepco's doing. We deeply appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And if I could just comment, because you did have the question on the moratoriums in Maryland, for folks that need energy assistance, they should reach out to Pepco as soon as possible. You can go to pepco.com/help. and you can understand all the options that are available. Our number one goal is to keep people connected. We want people to power on together. And so there are lots of energy assistance options available, both in terms of financial assistance as well as programs that are out there to help you manage your bills. So I really encourage folks to go to pepco.com/help, and if you need help, please go there today, because we are here to help. We will work with all customers.
I'm so glad you did that, because this evening I would have been saying, oh my goodness, I forgot to ask her that question. So thanks for sharing that with our viewers, because I know that there are folks out there that will need help. And I'm glad Pepco's there to serve. So uh, enjoy your weekend, stay safe, and thanks for joining us.
You too, and thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All righty.